Namaste everyone. We'll begin the third session in module 2. Just sit with eyes closed. Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Krishna Vagisha Yatishwarabhyam Samprapta Chakrankana Bhashya Saram Shri Nutna Rangendra Yatau Samarpitasvam Shri Krishna Maryam Guruvarya Mide Virodhe Kartike Mase Shatatara Kritodayam Yogacharyam Krishna Maryam Guruvaryamaham Bhaje Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So namaste everyone. God's grace, we have come to the fifth session of this attempt to explore the dimensions of Vedic chanting. I once again wish to thank my teacher, Sri Deshikacharya, his teacher and father, Sri Krishnamacharya, but for whom we would be here. And also would like to thank Hari Prasad for initiating this workshop, my friend Savitri, my family, my husband and children, all the support which has come together to facilitate this sharing. I thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. Today, I would like to touch upon the aspects a little bit more on the sequence in the learning of Vedic chanting, the way in which Deshkacharya sir applied, and that's what I had titled as Viniyoga. Vinyasa Krama is the sequence, Viniyoga, the dimensions to it and how we apply, and what there is to learn, how much is given. I want to just tell you that there's such a treasure trove, and this is enough for a lifetime, just to give you a hint on that. And whatever else you would like to ask with in relation to this. And before we conclude, we will share our thoughts on how to take this forward in the future. Before I start with today's content, any queries on what has been done so far? Did you have time to go over the content? I do realize I have touched upon a lot of things, lot of Sanskrit quotations and so on. But that is just the foundation. It's just to let you know that such a sound foundation is there for yoga and Veda. And none of it is our own creation. It is all there. I have only threaded, put together what the teacher has given and presented it in a manner to relate Vedic chanting with yoga. That was my intention. We need to go into each of these in great detail. We'll take our time and work on that. Anyone has any queries?
Ma'am, in corporate life, Saturday, Sunday comes so quickly that we, couldn't go back and listen to it. Although Hari sir shared the recording, but really apologies for that, ma'am. Couldn't check the last recording, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, ma'am.
I understand. What I suggest is find time for it, because only when you do it with the heat of the study, will it anchor. Otherwise, it will just dilute the whole thing. So find time for it. Do it in increments. Do it in installments. Go over it, and then you can always come back. We will share our contact details. You can always come back to learn more. the intention is to share and learn. So definitely it will be accessible. The teaching will be available. You just need to come. We will find a way of doing it in a constructive, practical way. All right.
Sure, ma'am.
May I, may I proceed? Yes. All right. Coming to the concept of vinyasa. Vinyasa, you know, in the yoga terminology is with reference to the sequence. Sequence meaning the way you arrange the body, the way you prepare your mind and body for what you're in the practice terminology. Meaning, for those of you who are open, I mean, coming to this for the first time, there is a lot of art and science behind how we arrange our practice. It's not like you have a menu card and you pick and choose. No. With regard to postures, with regard to pranayama techniques, there is a very, very definite order to it, which we call vinyasa krama. The word nyasa means to place. Nyasa also means surrender. In this context, vinyasa, to sensibly arrange your sequence of practice. There is an order as to which posture should come before this, which posture should come after that, how you equip yourself for what is coming. There is a direction, there is a goal. You have a concept of preparation towards the goal, and then there is another important, a very important part called counter poses, pratikriyasana. This is very, very important, how you come out of it. So in music terminology, in Indian music, we refer to it as Arohanam and Avarohanam, Aro and Avaro, the up and down to it. You know, you have to build up for that. This is extremely important for the practice to nourish the practitioner. Otherwise, we can be in trouble. This is what Hatha Yoga Pradipika, one more text on yoga practice, cautions. If we are not doing the appropriate practice, we can do more harm to ourselves than do good to ourselves. We shouldn't be under the illusion that anything called yoga is good. There are many expressions to it. Ati yoga, ayoga, mithya yoga. You know, yoga has these prefixes. Ati yoga is too much of that. Ayoga is the wrong one. Mithya yoga is an illusion about it. You know, you can get into a wrong practice, be it with the body or the mind, whatever, it can do a lot of harm. So this is to know that it has to be done under the supervision of a teacher. Vinyasa krama is extremely important. Okay, this is a brief on the practice front. In the context of Vedic chanting too, I wish to share that there is a sequence in the learning also. Given the repertoire, the number of chants we have, there is a brilliant sequence in that. It is not like it is often taught like, you know, I would like to learn this. I want to do this in 10 days. I want to do this in 3 months. It doesn't work that way. There is a sequence to the chanting because in the chanting that we have been taught, there are some passages which are fairly simple and they do get more and more complex and more demanding and more difficult in terms of phonetics, in terms of breath regulation, in terms of the rendition itself. So that itself requires a lot of preparation. This is what I mean by Vinyasa Krama and Vedic chanting. So that's why the teachers have established a Vinyasa Krama. This is another thing I want to establish, that we start with something basic and move on, move on, move on. There's so many things they've given. I will mention some of the chapters. I don't know how much if it is familiar to you, whatever, but nevertheless, you should know that, you know, we start with something like Laghunyasa. Om Agnirmi Vachishvritaha Vaghridaye Hridayam Mai Aham Amrite Amritam Brahmani Vayurme Pranishvritaha Prano Hridaye Hridayam Mai Aham Amrite Amritam Brahmani. See, there is a repetitive pattern here. This is fairly easy. Then you have another similar repetitive one in Mantra Pushpam. Om Yopam Pushpam Veda Pushpavan Prajavan Pashuman Bhavati Chandramava Apam Pushpam Pushpavan Prajavan Pashuman Bhavati Ya Evam Veda Yopamayatanam Veda Ayatanavan Bhavati. This segment keeps coming. This makes it easy because there's a pattern to it. Then you come into many more chapters which get more and more extensive in terms of lines, in terms of the composition and so on. You take up Rudram Chamakam. In Chamakam, the last line, the last Anuvaka. Eka cha me, tisrascha me, pancha cha me, sapta cha me, nava cha ma, eka dasha cha. The last part. Vyashniyaschantyayanaschantyascha bhuvanascha bhuvanaschaadhipatischa. That's a mouthful. To say that flawlessly. Or you have long lines like Shando vata pavatam matarishvashannastapatu suryaha ahanisham bhavantu nashadungrat tripatidhiyatam shamushano vyuchhatu shamaditya uditunaha. Many lines, it gets more and more difficult. So when we learn, when we teach, we have to go with the ability of the individual, the commitment of the individual to keep practicing to move on to more and more of these chants. So there is definitely a sequence in the learning, and this is how we were trained. This is how Deshkacha taught us. Once you've mastered this, you are flawless with that, then you're ready for the next. And the chapters get bigger and bigger and bigger. You have Mahanarayana Upanishad, one of the most beautiful Upanishads to chant, and that has a lot of important teachings. Aghamarshana Suktam, Durva Suktam, Narayana Suktam, Medha Suktam, Durga Suktam, Gayatri Mantra, Sandhya Vandanam. So many, Arogya Mantra, Pranapana. All these, so many important teachings in that one Upanishad. That is a must learn. So also with Arunam, prayer to the sun, huge one. That's also a big chapter, which takes almost an hour to chant if you have to do it in its all totality. Then you have Taittiriya Upanishad, which has 3 chapters. Then you have another segment called Chittisruku. That's the one which has the Purusha Sutta and some other beautiful passages in it. You have another segment called Pravargyam, Mantram, Pravargya, Brahmanam. There are 2 chapters. You may have heard of Prithvi Shanta, that is from Pravargyam. Then you have another part. All this is a part of Taittiriya Aranyaka. In the Veda, you have Samhita Bhaga, a portion which is the core content. Then you have the Aranyaka, you have the Brahmanam, and then you have the Upanishad. The different segments to this. There's so many chants in each of these. There's this thing called Taittiriya Brahmanam Katakam. This is a conversation between Yama and Nachiketa. You may have heard of the story where the father was so upset that he couldn't give in charity with good quality, and when the son questions him, he gets so angry with the he says, oh, just go to hell, go to the Lord of Death. And then it's visualized that this child goes there, he has a conversation with the Lord of Death. And the dialogue is so beautiful. There couldn't be a better student than Nachiketa, there couldn't be a better teacher than Lord Yama. To see the way the mantras go, beautiful, meant to be, in auspicious occasions in our culture, at weddings and all, you may have heard of this line. Sanjnanam Vijnanam Prajnanam Janadabhijanat Sankalpamanam Prakalpamanam Upakalpamanam Upakyuttam Kyuttam Shreyo Vasiya Ayat Sambhutam Bhutam Chitra Ketu Prabhanabhan Sambhan Jyotishmagustejasvanata Bhitapanna Rochano Rochamana Shobhana Shobhamana Kalyanaha. This Rochano Rochamana comes many times at weddings, any auspicious occasion. This is from Katakam, Taittiriya Brahmanam. You may have been exposed to these here and there, if you have attended pujas or homams in temples or in special occasions. Like, this, we celebrate, like, these are milestones in one's life. The 60th birthday, which is celebrated as Shashtiyat Bhukti. 70th is Bhimarada Shanti. 80th is Sadabhishekam. They have one for 90, and of course, Shatabda Purti, when you complete 100 years. That was what was celebrated for Krishnamacharya. These are all very, very important milestones in one's life, which is marked with a lot of prayers Vedic chanting, including the Rudram Chamakam, for Ayu, Arogya, and so on. These chants are also there in our repertoire of chanting. So I wanted to tell you that is there. Then you have Taittiriya Samhita. That's the core content. We have received a little bit of that too. Every passage, I mean, all those chants are very long drawn. That's kind of the last thing the Deshpachars have taught us after completing all these things. So this is the sequence available to learn. This apart, we have quite a few Krama Jata Dhanam and a lot of Kramas alone, which are classified as Ashirvada Mantra, meaning blessings. Lots of blessings. Those mantras are all affirmations and seeking divine grace. That's also there to learn. Then in the other segment, Krishnamacharya has also taught us forms of worship, which is not Vedic chanting, like I mentioned about Vishnu Sahasranama. We have this composition called Mukunda Mala by one of the Alvars, one of the great saints, which is worshipping Krishna. And this was a favorite of Sri Krishnamacharya. There are 40 shlokas, which is all about devotion. His very passionate concept of Ishvara Pranidhana. This apart, he has taught us Yamunacharya's Stotra Rattana. These are 65 shlokas in Sanskritam, all on devotion. Yamunacharya is a descendant of Natha Muni. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's also written the scripture, the Gita Sangraha, the short form of Bhagavad Gita. The beautiful verses on that. These 65 shlokas called Stotra Ratna are all on Bhakti. This is another treasure which Deshpachar has taught us. When you have Aditya Hridayam, prayer to the sun, this is quite popular. That's also good to learn. Then you have the compositions of Vedanta Deshika, the family tradition, the Ramanuja's tradition. Again, a lot of compositions on Bhakti. Some of the things he has taught us are Sudarshana Ashtakam, 8 shlokas on glorifying Lord Sudarshana. Garuda Dandakam, 7 shlokas on Garuda, the ones who serve the divine. And then you have Abhiti Stavaha. Abhiti Stavaha, again, a set of 30 shlokas which are on Bhakti and removal of fear of death. That's the context there, to prepare ourselves to be in the right frame of mind, to take the future in our stride, to help us deal with the mind, to deal with Abhinivesha. That's the important thing with Abhiti Stavaha. Abhiti, to be rid of fear of any kind. Beautiful shlokas. Okay, so these are some of the things which are there on the other forms of chanting, the Vedic and the other kind. I do not want to call it non-Vedic, but these are all bhakti related, surrender and devotion. So this is the repertoire of chanting available, which our teacher has taught us, which is meant to be learned, right? This is a part of Vinyasa Krama. So much to learn, and believe me, to keep pace with all these itself is a tall order. You have to keep practicing these because there's so many things. If you let go of one, you forget the other. That's how it is. It's very challenging to keep up your practice. But that's so good because it keeps us on our toes. It helps to, as I mentioned in the very first session, chanting is meant for Chitta Shuddhi, to cleanse the mind and body and keep applying it and using it for a lifetime. What a variety we have, thanks to our teachers. Okay. I had also told you about the concept of vinyasa, the importance of opening prayer and closing prayer. I'm just touching upon that once more, practically in every session, because of the nature of the mind, the vulnerability to be distracted. We have a very important part called opening prayer and closing prayer. Opening prayer is to bring the mind to focus on what you're about to do for Vedic chanting. We have a very brief one. Apparently, what Sri Deshpachar did with his father, prayer itself was for 10-15 minutes. Because Acharya said it takes that long for the mind to come and settle down. We need that time. So that is a very, very important part of vinyasa, to start on the right note. And the conclusion too. The closing prayer is extremely important to come back to where we are, to get on with life, with what we're about to do after the chanting, and to acknowledge the grace we have received, to apologize for the errors we may have made unknowingly or knowingly, whatever, to come back to realign our mind and body. This is a very important part of chanting, in the Vinyasa Krama. Do not compromise on the opening prayer or the closing prayer. That's what I want to emphasize. Extremely important. In practice too, I remember Deshkacha telling me, preparation in the asana pranayama sequence, he would say, never mind, you can take liberties if the person is young, person is fit. You don't really have to start. There were times when he would just start with a Pashuttanasana Vinyasa. We would always start with a symmetrical standing posture, right? He would say, no, never mind, person is really fit, can start with that. But no compromise on counter poses. This is something he always emphasized. But pranayama needs a counter pose, dhyana needs a counter pose, and definitely asanas need a counter pose. Chanting, the closing prayer is the counter pose. It has its place to set the mind in the right track. That I have done this with grace and I place it at the feet of the Lord. It is not for me, it is through me, it is for the Lord. The bhavana is very, very important. So, closing prayer is very important to conclude a chanting practice, be it in a class or be it in a private session. It has its place. It's very important. Okay. With that, I wrap up the concept of vinyasa krama. Just highlighted what all there is to learn and move on. Now, I would like, yes.
Ma'am, you just mentioned about counter pose of dhyana. Can you please elaborate counter pose of dhyana? Uh, what do you mean by an
What I
uh,
mean by pose in dhyana is, see, when the mind is very absorbed in a chosen object of contemplation, and at some point in time, we need to get on with the rest of our day. We need to move on with that. So what happens is, it takes a while for the mind to disconnect with that object and connect with the next thing in life, whatever you're about to do. For all you know, you're going to drive to work. You need to have your reflexes in place. This happened, what happened was, those days, it was an old patterned house where Sir Deshkacha was living. There was a spiral stairway we had to climb to go up, which is an external entry exit point to go to his room for the classes. And one session, I remember so well, this was an English woman. After the pranayama dhyana workshop, she lost her balance coming down the flight of stairs. She was a little disoriented after that, got up in a hurry to come down. Simple. Just give yourself some time. What do I mean? Very simple. Rest, open your eyes, just do some normal breathing. You don't have to get into a pranayama technique again, but realign yourself to come out of the dhyana to move on with the next activity. That's what I mean. Even pranayama, you feel so good after the pranayama, you feel so good after the dhyana. Such a nice feeling. Sever that moment. Don't get into a rajasic act of, undoing the benefit of what has just been done. So there are two things to the dhyana. When I say counter pose, two aspects to it. One is very gently come out of it, and two, don't undo what has been done. That sequence is very important. Sever that moment and drift into the next activity very gently. So there is a sattvic spillover. We shouldn't
yeah,
get provoked into the wrong thing. This is very important. So you sever that moment and let it move on and come into the rest of whatever you are doing. Okay, you're very collected.
right.
Okay.
I used to think, ma'am, beyond dharana, there is no duality because in asana we do all the dualities aspect, and in pranayama also we have duality, like left nostril, right nostril, all these things. Like duality is there, like the counter for every other pose. But I used to believe when we move away from dharana towards samadhi, there is no counter pose. But it is interesting to hear you, like the way you are mentioning about what counter pose is when you do the dharana part. It's interesting to say for the condition, right, ma'am? Thank you for elaborating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is very important because in our effort to get ourselves better, we shouldn't do anything to undo what we do. So that's why I always ask, this is how Deshkacha taught us, when you sit down for dhyana, When you sit down for pranayama, when you come to asana practice, we always make it a point to find out how much time we can spare, because this should not become a source of stress. So we have to be practical, not idealistic. Oh yeah, it is nice to have 1 hour dhyana and all. Where do we have the time? Unless you really make the time, it's possible. But we have to be realistic. When we are leading a life with other commitments, we can't do that. One exceptional instance I remember is one lady came for therapy and Deshkacha sir gave her only 2 postures. Okay, 10 minutes. We were stunned. He said, look, if you give it to her for 10 minutes, she will do it every day. You give her a sequence for half an hour, she'll let go of yoga. That's not what we want. We need quality and we need commitment. So he says, this is worth it. When she experiences the benefit of this, she will make more time. Then you make that practice from 10 to 12 minutes or 15 minutes. This is so important, such a good teaching. We should be practical. So if the person is in a state where you need to get more sattva in them, give that which will facilitate that, not that which will cause stress. So we're very picky on what asana, what pranayama, what dhyana. It shouldn't be jeopardizing that, or first let go of yoga itself, because this is not for me. I've had so many students who come to me like that from other yoga institutions. They came and said, "Oh my God, I never knew this is possible to actually enjoy and be relaxed about yoga. I was so paranoid or anxious and stressed out. Oh my God, I have a yoga class." I said, "So sad. That's not how yoga is meant to be." And a simple chant, that's what I want to speak about in the vinyasa and vinyoga also. Simplicity. It should reach the mind. It should be receptive. Whatever we do, being chanting or pranayama or whatever, we should be in that frequency to receive it. Only then will it work. Even in the concept of ahara niyama, food, beautiful phrases, hitam and mitam. Hitam means that which is good for that individual. Mitam means the right quantity. This is fantastic. What is good for me need not be good for somebody else. And we have this, pediatric dose, adult dose, what you can handle. Don't give it in paper and writing saying do this, this, this. Are they going to really do it? Is it really going to be work for them? Think it over. This is the teacher's responsibility. That is why we're very emphatic about one-on-one sessions for practice. And chanting also, I moved the idea of very small groups or one-on-one only because you get maximum, you need individual attention. Am I comfortable with this? Can I handle it? Let me take my own time to, take in that chant. Allow it to become a part of you. So there is a openness required of the mind of the individual and the teacher's patience and the teacher's very vast foundation to be able to reach out. This is very important. Deshkacha sir will always tell me, in Tamil he would say, the very anju vishaya vechiko, moona kudu, yoschi paatha appu kudu. Meaning, prepare yourself well, you have at least 5 things to share. Share at least 3. See how they are. So you are not in want, they are not in want. This is a teacher. You need to have a solid base to be able to reach out. And that again is feasible. We can all equip ourselves. We need to be open for that in the first place. What I have is not enough. Let me get better and better and better, both as a student and as a teacher. At some point in time, okay, we've learned all these things. Sustaining what we have learned is the most important part and quite challenging. Praptasya rakshanam. You can easily get things. Apraptasya praptihi yoga. You can acquire a lot. How do you nurture that? How do you sustain that? That is very, very important. So that is an ongoing effort for a lifetime. In fact, I was telling Hariprasad the other day, when we come to chanting, what I want to sow the seed and share with you all is, please look up to chanting as one which we can practice and learn and move on for a lifetime. Don't constrain yourself with short-term things at all. You're missing out so much. Okay, today, whatever reason, they have these short-term courses. I'm always intrigued by, 200 hours, 300 hours, 30 hours, this segment and all. Please, that's just a formality for whatever reason. But do remember, none of this is actually relevant, especially for chanting. You cannot put a time frame, a deadline on chanting. It is something which should be enveloped, taken for a lifetime. That's the way you should come to it. Be open. Take your own time. Who's asking you for that? I mean, why should we learn within such and such date? You don't need to. And that's why it was not given that way. We had the concept of uh, Gurukula Vasa. Antevasyuttara Rupam, such a beautiful line in Taittiriya Upanishad Shikshavalli. You know how education was? Acharya Purva Rupam. First, you need a teacher, live transmission. I have already mentioned that, the teacher's abhyasa is transferred, is transmitted, and that is priceless. Antevasyuttara Rupam, meaning Antevasin, one who stays with the teacher for a length of time. For many years. That is why the grooming took place. It was not like you have it today, confined to a restricted number of hours. You cannot learn properly in that time. You can make a start. Don't stop there is what I am saying. Please come back, move on. You need to come back to be at it. Antevasin. Vidya Sandhihi Pravachanagum Sandhanam. Fantastic phrases. The connect was learning mutually for the teacher and the student. Sandhi. That connect was learning. Pravachanam Sandhanam. Pravachanam. Brilliant. According to the nature of the student. It was given. It was personalized teaching. See, in our Indian education system, up to class 10, you don't have a choice. You do everything. Then you branch into whatever you really want to learn, isn't it? We are not forced into everything else. You want to take whichever stream of learning you choose. That is how it was done, even in ancient times. You look at the Yoga Sutra too. The 4 chapters were given to 4 different students based on their ability. Learning, even chanting, like, if certain individual needs to learn this, it was given according to the way they could handle. In this context, I must tell you about Vinyasa Krama and Vinyoga. Vinyoga means application to, to share according to the requirement. Many of you have heard of Rudram. There is a beautiful quotation which says, Na Rudro Veda Pathaha, which is a benchmark, it is a yardstick for Vedic chanting. Rudram is Vedam, Vedam is Rudram. That's how important and beautiful that is. And here was a student who wanted to learn that but was not able to handle it, was not ready for this. I'm talking of a person from a different country. But so kind of sir, he didn't want to deny that to that person. So he gave another format which is also there in Vedic chanting to fulfill that requirement. Okay, there is this segment part called Rudra Trishati. Trishati means 300 names. Okay, Rudram has 11 parts to it. 11 parts of the Rudram chanted by 11 people 11 times is a yajna. 11 to 11 to 11. That's a Mahayajna, Rudra Yajna. You may have heard of this, which is very famous and which is definitely done during Mahashivaratri, which usually comes in the month of March. When you go to Tiruvannamalai, you go to any Shiva temple, this is a practice. Okay. So, what is this Rudra Trishati? How did this come about? Amongst the 11 segments in Rudram, the Trishati constitutes Anuvakam 2 to Anuvakam 9. There is a continuous phrasing in those parts of chanting. Okay? The first segment, the 10th and the 11th are shorter phrases. But Anuvakam 2 to 9, they are continuous phrases. This has been structured as short phrases called Rudra Trishati. I'll give you an example. See how it goes. The second Anuvaka in Rudram starts like this. Om Namo Hiranyabahave Senanye Dishancha Pataye Namo Namo Vrikshebhyo Harikeshebhya Pashunam. It goes on. Okay, Trishati. How does that go? What is the first part here? Namo Hiranyabahave Senanye Namo Hiranyabahave Namaha Senanye Namaha Dishancha Pataye Namaha Namo Vrikshebhyo Namaha. See, there is a Namaha at the end of it, at the end of every adjective, every phrase there. This, when extended between Anuvaka 2 and 9, constitutes the Trishati, the 300 names. So, for someone who is not able to learn the Rudram fully, for whatever reason, this was suggested. Not that this is easy. The only comfort is this is in shorter phrases. It is the same thing given in this format, which is there in the Veda itself. That's what is something we need to appreciate, the way Vishkacharya gave us the application. This is one example of Rudra Trishati, how it is adapted. Then, many of you may have heard of the Ayur mantra. Om Ayur Dehi, Om Pranan Dehi. There are 12 lines. You know, the original form is in Pravargyam, and this is how it goes in 6 lines. This is how it is. Om Ayur Dehi, Pranan Dehi. Apanandhi, Vyanandhi, Chakshurdhi, Shrotrandhi, Manodhi, Vachandhi. This is how it goes. This, sir, adapted without compromising on the original form into 12 lines to make it easy for learning. You see, this is another part of Viniyoga. See how he, without, see, that's something we should remember. Don't break the original. We can't afford to touch the original. That is a mantra. Mantra is a mantra. We've been through that. What it is, we have to hold on to the original form. But when he did the Viniyoga, meaning how he adapted that, it was based on the original structure. This is one more example. And the another that I can share some more. In Durga Suktam, he has added some swaras to emphasize for his own reasons. So also in Narayana Upanishad, he added the word Shriman Narayana, you know, in the end, Narayana Sayujyamavapnoti, Shriman Narayana Sayujyamavapnoti. If you look at the other versions, they do not have the word Shriman Narayana. According to Krishnamacharya, we always look at the divinity as a couple. But for Shri's compassion, we will not have access to Vishnu. This is the belief. This is the sequence. This is the way we pray. This is how we are taught to pray. So the mantra has always had that touch to him. You know, even in our opening prayer, to the Guru Parampara, Dampati Jagatampati Dampati. What is Dampati? Again, a couple, the divine couple. So that was all a touch of Sri Krishnamacharya's teaching. How we always have Shri. When he spoke of Ishvara Pranidhana, he mentioned Ishvara plus Ishwari, the feminine gender also. So they always go together. This is a personal touch to give emphasis and bhavana to the chant. He added this like he added the word Tamo Vrittir Nidra when he studied Yoga Sutra. You look at other editions of Yoga Sutra, when they define Nidra, the word tamas is not there. I don't know if you're aware of it. This is again Krishnamacharya's contribution to that. Because he wanted to distinguish Yoga Nidra from Tamo Nidra. Okay, it's sleep induced by tamas, and Yoga Nidra is when you are closer to your Atma, that state of being. To distinguish that, he had mentioned the word tamas, Tamo Nidra. Anyway, just to tell you that there is a personal touch in these points given by Sri Krishnamacharya for a purpose. This is also an aspect of Viniyoga. Okay, why there are differences when others chant this and when we chant it. This is why it is so. This is what I want you to know. Even Rudram, the Anuvakas 2 to 9, when you listen to people who chant the Rudram from other Veda Pathashalas, they will do it in one shot, just one continuous para. But when we chant, we have a break there, which is given by Acharya again. We do it in 2 parts. There is a full stop at the middle of every Anuvaka. When you learn, you will know that. This again is Acharya's touch. Okay, so these are some examples of Viniyoga, how we adapt according to the individual without disturbing or altering the original mantra. You know, I'll give you one more example. You've all heard of Arogya Mantra, maybe. This is from Mahanarayana Upanishad. There are 11 lines, 10 long ones, and the short one is there at the end, which goes like this. Om Pranapana Vyanodana Samanani Shuddhyantan Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuya Sadguswaha. There are many more. When we do in practice, if you want to just help the individual get better, connect with this, he's given this form. Om Pranaya Swaha. Om Apanaya Swaha. Om Vyanaya Swaha. We apply these. And these are part of Sandhyavandana mantras. The structure is also there in the Mahanarayana Upanishad. So this is another variation. Then you may have heard of the Achamana mantra, or what is called mantra, mantra traya. There are 3 names of the Lord, which is so powerful, as good as a medicine. There is a shloka which says, Achyutananta Govindaya Namocharana Bheshajat Nashyanti Sakala Rogaha Satyam Satyam Vadamyam. What is this? The gist of this is the mere utterance of Achyuta, Ananta, Govinda is the ultimate of medicine. It has the ability to cleanse, purify, heal, and cure any ailment. Nashyanti Sakala Rogaha Satyam Satyam Vadamyam. This is the truth. And the word Satya comes twice. This is to emphasize the power of this Namatraya. This is also the Achamana mantra. There is a reference to this even in Aditya Hridayam, where Sri Rama and Lakshmana do the Achamanam before they do their Sandhya Vandanam. They do their prayers by chanting this before they go to war to destroy the demons. Okay, so we can use this in our practice too. There are namas, names, which Acharya has taught us, adapted from the Sandhyavandana mantra. So, you raise arms on inhale, I'll come to that part again, Om Achyutaya Namaha, Om Anantaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha. One way of applying. This again is Viniyoga. Simple, just simple names of the Lord. Then there is what is called Dvadasha Nama. There are 12 names of Vishnu, which can also be used in therapy, in practice. Om Keshavaya Namaha, Om Narayanaya Namaha. There are 12 of them, including Achyutananta and Govinda, which come in that too. So these were other things we were taught. When we work with children, or even in practice, you're doing a vinyasa krama, for example. It's nice to have these variety of names. It keeps the mind focused. There is an order to it. There is a sequence to it. There is a phonetic to it. There is a swara to it. Simple things. These are not elaborate chants, long drawn lines. Simple namas. This again is a part of Viniyoga. How we apply it, make it easy. It's palpable, it's easy. How you can use it. Om Namo Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That again you can fragment. Om Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. See, when it extends, your exhale gets extended. How you can work on the breath through the sound. This is Viniyoga. Okay, so to summarize, we need to know the principles of asana practice. We need to do a variety of chants, and then see what is relevant for the individual and apply them according to the well-being of the individual. This again is something we can explore in plenty. Here I am just sowing the seed to say there is this dimension to the application of yoga. Very effective, very, very effective, especially using chants in practice, using the right chant in practice. This again is respecting the mind and body of the individual. I want to emphasize this. I mentioned Rudram, right? There was a colleague of ours in KYM to whom Sri Deshkachar said, Rudram, not for you. Your physicality cannot handle it. That's it. It's not right for you, it's not right for you, period. When we study the Aranyaka, Taittiriya Aranyaka, there are many chapters in that, including Aruna Mahanara Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, and so on. There's one part on Shraddha mantras, those which are done for funeral rites. And the teacher told me, he said, that's not relevant for you, we will skip that, we're not going to learn that. Right? So there is a personal connect and relevance in chanting as well. This is a part of Vini Yoga. What is it that is good for the individual? Learn as much. See, it is not restricted to anybody. It is our ability to handle what is given to us and take it forward. Another aspect to it is prepare ourselves to take it. There is no denial, but we need to know how to handle that. It's like how you have in education. You have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's degree before you go to your doctorate. You need the foundation, right? You need the spade work for that. Very, very important in Vedic chanting as well. You need to prepare well to handle that properly and do justice. Because there is a requirement for every chant which we need to fulfill. All we need to do is be at it, work for it, and take it for a lifetime. Don't constrain, restrict yourself to any framework of time. Just don't do that. Be open. All your life you can go on with this. There's so much for it. Okay. Now, any questions before I move on to the next part? I want to speak about, yes.
Ma'am, I was wondering, for the first time I'm hearing all about chants around Vini Yoga, because we had a lot of Vini Yoga sessions. I used to feel that they are too intense, their physicality, and also at a mental level. So I was wondering, ma'am, can we have, is there a protocol like we can have some yoga chantings while we are performing Vini Yoga? Because what I've observed is during sessions, like yoga sessions, Vini Yoga, they mostly end up towards physical body, like feeling of weakness around your physical body, and it doesn't reach us towards the mental areas. Uh, so, is there a protocol, like can we play some chants of Vini Yoga which can direct us and take us towards spiritual and mental realms? So while
By
performing.
all means, by all means, it's very good to do that. That is what I want to move. For those of you who can take to chanting, yoga practitioners, yoga teachers, yoga students, according to this tradition, this is an integral part of our practice. We've missed out on that. I would ideally say, even if the first practitioner cannot chant, I mean, during the group session, it would be wonderful to commence with some chanting, conclude with some chanting. Just listen. So we need to equip ourselves for that, to do it properly. That is a fantastic dhyana in itself. It completes the sequence in a very beautiful note. Just listen to the chant, provided it is done properly. And it's not a problem. I'm always saying, come, work on that, equip ourselves for that. According to this tradition, according to Acharya, and especially the way Deshtacha gave us, chanting has a major role. We have not tapped that or not explored that. Unfortunately, confined ourselves only to the physicality. We need to go there. So much to this, how effective it is to be experienced. I agree with you. Please get into, it is good to start learning, including chanting as a part of every practice. Every practice. That is why the scripture says, Sa mantraka pranayama. The best pranayama is that which is done with mantra. And we can't start with that. We need to start with chanting in the asana first. We need to experience the chant before we can do it in our mind. And then it can be incorporated in your dhyana as well. So, yes, we need to restructure the practice sessions, one-on-one, or whenever you do a fitness session with a group session. It will be a wonderful thing to include it, provided they are open to it. Yes, it's very important.
Right.
And it'll be beautiful. Anybody can.
Yeah.
And there's so many chants. How else will we were exposed to it thanks to our teacher. Every occasion in KYM, we are chanting. Last week, I mentioned about Sushrava Danda. I told you about the child holding the bark and asking for education. When I spoke about Ashtanga Yoga, Mini Yoga, I learned the chant in a context like that. When he said, Dr. B. Ramurthy would love it, come, learn. It was a context. So contextual learning happened in plenty. Like Trishati, I had learned Rudram. One day he said, come, let's run through the Trishati because it's the same mantra only given in that format. This you will teach this person because this person cannot, it doesn't have the time or it can't handle the entire Rudram in its original form. This is the other form of Rudram itself. It's not less in any way. It's in a fragment, it's in some shorter phrases. So please take it this way. So what I'm saying is, teachers have given us the many options to apply, adapt chanting without compromising the original for various situations. It's given us quite a bit. We just need to keep practicing and take it forward. I would like to do that. All right.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Now I want to mention the next part of this Vini Yoga itself. With regard to the practice of yoga, I have already mentioned that we need to be familiar with the principles of practice, vinyasa krama. We should know how to sequence the posture, the practice. And we need to know also how you modify postures. This is another requirement with regard to the application of sound in therapy. That's what I'm heading for. How do you modify postures? There are every form and function, there are different variations possible. Like for example, if you take up the forward bend, Uttanasana, you can do it with the knees bent. You can do it sweeping your arms backward when you're bending forward instead of touching your toes. Every posture, there is a variation. Okay, this is another thing we need to know. Then you need to know a reasonable number of chants, options, as I mentioned, a sound foundation to know which of them is relevant for whom in which context. Okay, this is a prerequisite. You need to know the principles of practice, the modification of postures, and a good number of chants before you come into the application of chants in therapy. Right? Now, I mentioned earlier that chanting itself is an aspect and as a part of exhalation. Okay? The moment you chant, do remember it is exhale. Now, when you talk of asana and chanting, there are some possibilities. That is, you can chant when you're raising your arms, which is supposedly on inhale, but when you are chanting, it is an exhale, but you're stretching with the chant. Then another part is when you're exhaling, instead of doing a throat exhale, you are chanting and exhaling, which you may have seen in Surya Namaskar sequence. That's quite popular. It's easy to relate to. Okay, so the first form is in Namaskar. Om Hram Udyanadya Mitramaha. You raise your arms above. Om Hrim Arohanuttaran Divam. Uttanasana. You bend forward. Om Hroom Hritrogam Mama Surya. So what you're doing here is chanting in every posture. You're holding the form for the duration of the chant. So you're experiencing the asana sthiti through this form. This is one part. Now, what I'm telling you is there is a possibility of using a chant during an act of stretching or during an act of contraction, either in a forward bend or that kind of movement or in a movement away from the body. Either ways, remember, chanting is exhale. The act, the impact, the effect will vary depending on the posture. This is the first thing I want to establish to make you understand that. See, you're familiar with Virabhadrasana. You know, most of you know what that asymmetrical back arch is. Okay? That is a back arch in its form itself. So when you chant in that, you're staying in that, you're extending this, you're opening your chest even more, arching the back while you're in the posture. That's not easy. It's quite demanding, but that is also possible. So also in the Surya Namaskar Vinyasa, when you get into an Adho Mukha Svanasana, you have a chant, head down. So that impact is quite different from how you would do it in a Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. When you arch the back. Are you able to visualize what I am saying? These, when we have, offline workshops, we will explore these. Come along. You can try all these postures and chanting and, one variant at a time to know what it feels like. So just to let you know that these are possibilities. One. Another aspect I want to highlight is the concept of Brahmana and Langhana. This is a concept present in Ayurveda, which we also use in yoga practice, which is also there in chanting. Okay, what is Brahmana? Brahmana in the context is that which is energizing, which is uplifting. Bruhi, bruhi, that which expands. So when you talk of Brahmana, it is that which is uplifting. In the context of Ayurveda, Brahmana would be nourishing, that which helps to gain weight, to gain strength. That is Brahmana. In the context of asana practice or pranayama practice, Brahmana would be to energize. So you're working more on inhalation, awakening. Okay, it gives you that pumps you with energy. Langhana is the opposite. In the context of Ayurveda, it is like fasting. Don't, not to take certain things. Langhanam parama aushadham. The best medicine is fasting. That is why in our culture, we have the concept of Ekadashi Vratam. On every 15th cycle, 15th day of cycle of the moon, you go on a very light diet to give a break for the digestive energy to rekindle itself. Langhanam. In the context of asana, Langhana pranayama, Langhana practice, meaning work on exhale, work on relaxation. Somebody is so stressed out, anxious in mind and body. You don't give a Brahmana practice and wind them up all the more. You work on Langhana to help them relax. Right? In sounds, in chanting, we have sounds or chants which energize you, and those sounds and chants which relax you. Okay, the last week, so beautifully, you all repeated after me when I chanted the shloka on Namami Narayana Pada Pankajam, and quite a few mentioned that word Narayana. It was so relaxing, it was so soothing. Okay, now are you game? Shall we try another now? All set? Mute and repeat after me. Om Ram. Together. Om Ram. Close your eyes and chant. Om Ram. Om Ram. Om Ram. Will you? Anyone sweating? Can you feel the contrast to what you did last week? Yes, anyone wants to share?
It felt more focused and sharp, kind of.
Ra Shabda, Ram, Hram, Hri, anything with Ra is fire. Okay, it's called Agni Bijam. That's what I mean by Brahmana. It awakens you. You're energized. You can't sleep with this. You can't doze off or relax with this. Okay, this is just to tell you, Shabda has this effect. There are different chants. Like if you say Om Namah Shivaya, so gentle. Om Ram, wide away. This is what I mean by Langhana and Brahmana effect in chanting. Okay, so you have a variation in the posture. You have back arches which are Brahmana in nature, forward bends or working on exhale, Apanasana kind of postures which are Langhana in nature. Then you have sounds which are Brahmana in nature and sounds which are Langhana in nature, which are relaxing. Okay, now see the permutation combination possible. You can have a Langhana chant in a Langhana posture to enhance the Langhana effect. You can have a Langhana chant in a Brahmana posture. You need to strike a balance and vice versa. Just telling you, see how many combinations are possible depending on the chant, depending on the sequence of posture, depending on the technique of pranayama also. See, if you look at pranayama, say Nadi Shuddhi pranayama, you have Surya Bhedana, you have Chandra Bhedana. Right inhale, right nostril inhale, left nostril exhale, Surya. That is Brahmana. Left inhale, that is the moon side. Now, left nostril inhale, right exhale is Langhana. There again, you can play around with the choice. And where you position in pranayama, also note, you have 4 options. You are not doing it physically aloud. You are doing it in your mind. So there again, you can play around. Do you do the mantra during inhale, hold after inhale, exhale or hold after exhale. See the options you have. Plenty. You should know which is relevant for whom in what form. One more dimension to this Brahmana and Langhana is the pitch in which you chant. Okay, whatever be the chant, if you say Om Ram, it is an Agni Bija, but when you do in a slower pitch, it's more relaxing. On the other hand, see Om Ram, Om Ram, pitch energy also varies. Okay, so I'm just sowing the seed to say that there are so many permutation combination possible with the chant, with the posture, where you apply, how you apply to bring about the desired result in the individual. In our own practice, let alone taking it to another. Depending on our state of mind and well-being, our nature. In Ayurveda, you have the concept of Prakriti also, Pitta Prakriti, Vata Prakriti, and so on. Chants and techniques and postures can do a lot of good to neutralize and balance that. For somebody who's got a lot of heat in the body, please go slow on Agni Bijam. Those which increase the heat within, they get very agitated. It can cause more disturbance. That's what I mean. For a Kapha Prakriti, you use a lot of Agni to bring that, tamasic or lethargy to more of energy level to nurture that. This is just to see so many things are possible given the options we have. We need to, what I would suggest is, we can have practical sessions. You come, we'll have a workshop on, we will take one variable at a time. How Deshkacha taught me was, we have a fixed set of practice, okay, postures. We'll vary the chant. You experience what that does to you. Then vary the posture, keep the same chant. See what that does to you. You can do one at a time. These are ways we can explore to know the effect, impact it does for us and how we can consciously take sattva forward in mind and body. Help the body and mind to get better as a more effective tool for our daily living. This is a very effective tool. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share with regard to the application. So many things are possible. We need to work on that gently one at a time. Learn a variety of chants, be thorough with the principles, so you have no doubts about the nature of the form and the function, the techniques in pranayama. This is all prerequisite. I want you to know all those. Then we can take this to a deeper level, explore more and more about this. Okay. Lastly, I had wanted to mention about the chanting part. We're overshooting by a few minutes. May I? You have the time? Just a little more. About this, there is this dimension to chanting called krama, jata, and ghanam. Different styles of chanting. You have a core line, and that line, when is done 2 words at a time, like in word building, it is called krama. Then you have what is called jata. Jata means like a braid, to plait, where you use 2 words, but in this particular formula, first word, second word, second word, first word, second word. That is one jata. Let's take the example of Gayatri Mantra. It's common, it's easy to relate with. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. This is the first part. Krama. Tat Savituhu Savitur Varenyam Varenyam Bhargaha. You see, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. This is the structure for Krama. Jata, the braiding part. I said, 2 words at a time in this formula. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2. Tat savitus savitus tat tat savituhu. 1 jata. Savitur varenyam varenyagum savitus savitur varenyam. Savitur varenyam varenyam savituhu savitur varenyam. See, this is a beautiful structure. You have another one which is an extension of jata called ghanam. There again, there's a formula which is an extension of jata using 3 words now. We were using 2 words for krama and jata. Ghanam, we use 3 words. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. You follow what I mean? First word, second word, second word, first word, second word. 1, 2, 3. First word, second word, third word. 3, 2, 1. Third word, second word, first word. 1, 2, 3. This is a ghanam. So if you look at Gayatri, tat savitus savitus tat tat savitur varenyam varenyagum savitus savitur varenyam tat savitur varenyam. 1 ghana. Like this, it is built upon. There is a structure to it. Because of the grammar, the sandhi, the conjunct, there will be variations and swaras also, the notes also change accordingly. This is another beautiful part of chanting, which originally was done from memory. They never allowed us to write it down. For quite a few chants, I remember Deshvacha not allowing us to use a paper or book. I would go home and quickly write it down before I forget. He won't let us write it down. You have to learn from memory. See the challenge in attention. You have to be so focused to get the structure right. This is a part of chanting which gave a good training in dharana, dhyana, and memory. Fantastic memory. You have to do it from memory. We didn't use finger counting and all. Sat with our hands died right down, no moving as usual, no facial expressions also. He would say, don't make monkey faces. You have to have that grace and dignity. He would never allow, we didn't. But if at all anybody did, puffed up face and saying ha, ha, and all drama on the face, no. He would always say, do it with that dignity and majesty and the grace. So chanting, whatever it is, be it Krama, Jata, Ghanam, whatever it is done in this manner. This is a very important part, and we are blessed to have a couple of chants in this format. Krama, Jata, Ghanam. Fantastic experience and exercise in training the mind. Okay. The other part I wanted to mention is what you have in the text is not always how you chant. The phonetics vary. So there again, you need to rule. When you know Sanskritam alphabets, that's why at the very first step I said you should know your Sanskritam alphabets inside out. We have what is called Anuswaram, the M Shabda, which is there as a dot above the word in the mantra. That changes color, that changes phonetic according to what follows that. This is just a rule, you just need to know this. Where you have this gung, gush, gus, it comes in different forms. There is a structure to it. When the M sound is followed by one of these alphabets, sh, sh, sa, ha, and some vowels, r, vowels like a, e, u, the gung will appear in that manner. So if you look at Gananantva Ganapati Gung Havama Ganapatim Havamahe becomes Ganapati Gung Havamahe because it's followed by Ha. Sa, Sha, Sha, Ha, Ra. When it is preceded by an M, it becomes a Gung. When this is a half letter, it becomes Guh, Gus, O Gus Swaha. We do not chant O Gung Swaha because in followed by is a half letter. It's what we call Samyuktakshara. These are the nuances to phonetics in grammar based on the letters. So this is something which we just follow as taught by our teacher. So another thing I wanted to share with you. There is a logic behind it. Why you have a gung, gus, guk here and there. It's based on the structure. And we don't say ging, bush. We don't make faces at all. Gung, G-U-N-G, bush. Very subtle. We don't show it in the lips and the cheeks and so on when we chant this. This is another important aspect of Finni's refined chant. Okay, so with these, I have tried to touch upon various aspects to chanting in practice. Each of these can be a subject in itself to explore. I have given you an I highlight, a view that there's so many aspects to these. Each of these can become a topic in itself to delve into. And of course, learning plenty of chants which Acharya has given. Right, with this, I wish to conclude. I hope I have kindled the interest in you to share and let you know that this is another beautiful world in Vedic chanting given by Acharya, an important part of yoga. I hope I have helped, provoked you into this. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for participating. Thank you for everything. I'm so happy because it's something I'm very passionate about, and we can move on more and more into these. Over to Hariprasad, over to Vivek. You had something to say?
Yeah, ma'am. I just have a kind of question. You touched base upon uh, the pitch in which we chant, right? And
Yeah,
from class one, from the class one, I have observed you are maintaining a particular pitch, uh, right? You are maintaining and following a particular pitch throughout these sessions. Is there a reason behind? Actually, in the very first session, it reminded me of the Havan which my parents used to perform because I come from an Arya Samaj family. So the same pitch I recalled, which happened in my childhood, and it really resonated with my kind of frequency and rekindled the feeling of going back into the chanting. So is there a reason why you uh, uh, remain in that pitch? Uh, so just
yeah. Actually, no specific reason. It's more an unconscious thing, choosing the pitch. It's just to highlight that what happens is when I chant, my pitch changes according to the person with whom I am chanting. Like I have a few students whose range is not very high. So I can't take a high pitch. They're lost. Their vocal cords will tear if I give them a high pitch. And there are students who necessarily need a high pitch because their range is like that. What I have done during these sessions would have been a coincidence that I wind up in that pitch. But there is no fixed pitch in chanting. We go with the ability and we tend to choose a higher pitch only because it helps to bring clarity to the low notes and how the three swaras stand out. Therefore, it is a practice to do in a high pitch. Relatively high. See, that is also, what is high is also relative. But we stick to the higher pitch, higher range for the purpose of majesty and clarity. All right? There's no fixed thing that we will
okay,
do
ma'am.
that. Yeah. Yes. Anybody
Thank
else?
you. As ma'am said at the start, we will also be having plans to elaborate on some of the topics covered in these 5 sessions. So we'll be keeping you posted about how that is. So mostly it will be in the form of specific chantings, right, ma'am? Specific chants which could be delved more deeper into.
We'll work on that. Yes, specific chants. Like one suggestion which came up was the next festival coming up here is Navaratri.
Yeah.
So if we can just do a little bit on Durga Suktam, Shri Suktam, Medha Suktam, and the Saraswati Mantra, just touch upon that. A simple session on chanting those, or maybe even touching upon the essence of those suktams. We can do 1 or 2 sessions on that because it's topical.
Yeah, and also perhaps sometime later, once we have with little more time and everything, we might also plan some retreats in the future where we can make it a more immersive experience, experiencing the chant and practicing it. So I'm just mentioning it. We have not planned anything, but we will soon do something on those lines also.
anyone is welcome to learn the chanting too.
Yeah. So for as you can see from these 5 sessions, I think the main idea that we have tried to communicate is also as much as possible take on one-on-one sessions, and we hope that the series has in a way communicated the importance of having a personalized chanting practice so that we can deepen that. So I'll share Sujaya ma'am's contact with all of you. Some of you already have it, but I'll share with everyone so that if you feel called to take it up on a one-on-one basis, you can reach out. And if you feel you would like to experience some of these ongoing sessions, we will update you when the next program gets planned, and you're welcome to join.
Another dream project of mine is to bring together from various age groups, various people to form ensembles, or like, you have these choirs and symphonies. I want us all to come together, men and women. We should form a group for ourselves, chant in various places. You can have it as performances on stage, where imagine, when you can do Krama Jata, like how Deshkachar would do with us, one group chant the Krama, another do the Jata, another do the Ghana. I want a lovely ensemble. Train for that, come together, bring more people together. School children, college goers, youngsters, any age group, just come together to take this chanting and take it seriously. And thereafter also, it's my dream, like when we can, once we've learned it, not only do performances to take it forward, also take it to old age homes, institutions where it will have a soothing, healing effect. And it's good for the world, like Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, may all be well. May we have positivity and these chants and well-being everywhere, vibrating everywhere. And the more we do together, there is this thing about number coming together, who to prarthana, as we say, coming together in a group and praying and chanting and so on. It would be lovely. So I also welcome people to come, learn, and let us form these ensembles, groups of people where we can chant wherever it is, be it in India or outside India. Start forming groups, come and learn, and let's take chanting forward in a big way. Thank you. May I conclude with the closing prayer?
Yes, ma'am.
कायेन वाचा मनसीन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृति स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। सर्वं श्री कृष्णार्पणमस्तु। Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.